David was concentrating on a cutlet, its savory flavor wafting from his plate, glancing occasionally at his wife, who was strolling down the hallway, engrossed in her phone. A faint crease appeared on his brow as he wondered who had managed to capture her attention so thoroughly during dinner. The quiet tapping of her footsteps on the floor brought his attention to her absence from the table. He wondered who was so interested in his wife's dinner time. It was obvious from the look on Emma's face that she was so engrossed in the conversation that she had completely forgotten about the food. David was even starting to get annoyed. Today Emma still had to write the grocery list for the New Year's table, and she was chatting with an invisible interlocutor for half an hour. When his wife would disconnect and happily come back to him, he imagined her parents had invited them over to celebrate New Year's Eve. David frowned. His father-in-law and mother-in-law lived in a huge country house, but lately Emma's father had been seriously ill. He wiped his mouth with a napkin and looked at her, ignoring her enthusiasm. "David, let's go. Dad's already set up the slide in the yard and promises fireworks." Her eyes shone with genuine delight. David squeezed her palm lightly. "Honey," he began softly, "my mother and sister and their children are coming to visit us on New Year's Eve." Emma's face darkened. "But they come every year." "Well, it's been 10 years," she tried to object. "Liam gets bored. And I'm tired of entertaining them." Emma started to boil over, and her husband hugged her conciliatingly. "Well, what are you doing? It's our New Year's tradition." Emma angrily threw his arm off her shoulder. "I meant this tradition, celebrating New Year's Eve at the stove, cleaning, cooking, and then doing it all over again for the rest of the weekend. It's the same thing every year. I don't get to enjoy the holiday and spend any meaningful time with you or Liam. All I do is work while everyone else relaxes. It's exhausting, David." She pressed her lips together resentfully. "It's true what they say, you spend the new year the way you see it." Maybe that's why she'd been having an endless Groundhog Day lately. Every year she woke up to the same routine, scrubbing kitchen counters, peeling endless potatoes, and juggling the complaints of relatives, while others basked in the holiday glow. The monotony was weighing her down, and she was desperate for a change. Emma's New Year's vacation should have made everyone else happy, but now her patience was wearing thin. "You're exaggerating. We're having a wonderful time." David refused to understand his wife. "By the way, Mom called yesterday. Confirmed everything's on track. We're in." Emma dropped her hands impotently. "And to ask me?" David stared perplexedly at his wife. "What's there to ask? After all?" Emma grinned bitterly. "A tradition, you say? And you won't change a thing?" Her spouse nodded carelessly. "All right," she replied conciliatorily, "but we'll be with my parents. If you change your mind, join us." But David, engrossed in his meal, let her words pass his ears, and Emma put the dishes away in the house and went to consult with her son, Liam. "It's your choice whether you want to celebrate New Year's Eve here with Grandma Linda and Aunt Sarah, or go to Grandpa Peter's in the country." The boy's eyes flashed. "To the country, Mom. I want to go to the village." He was sick to death of babysitting his cousins because Aunt Sarah had come to rest and celebrate, and the care of her twin boys fell on 9-year-old Liam's shoulders. "Let them play together. They're close in age. Only 5 years apart. I'm not interested in their tantrums," he grumbled. Emma's shoulders slumped sadly, but Liam suddenly winked at her conspiratorially. "Mom, I heard the whole thing. Dad's not going, but we can go together." Emma laughed. What a smart son she had. She nodded cheerfully. "Yes, on the 30th night we'll go to help with the holiday preparations." She was free on the 31st this year and decided to add another day of vacation. She envisioned the quiet of her parents' house and the fun Liam would bring to his grandparents. Meanwhile, David completely ignored his wife's plans in anticipation of the holiday. The next evening, as David rushed home to buy groceries for the holiday table, he shouted from the doorstep, "Emma, let's go grocery shopping after dinner." He was met with silence. "Emma, where are you?" he called out. After a moment, her calm voice replied, "We're at my Pied's house. I warned you." David suddenly felt sick to his stomach. A knot formed in his stomach, the weight of his assumptions pressing down on him. "I thought we understood each other," he muttered, and there was a note of regret and confusion in his voice. "I also thought we understood each other. For this New Year's Eve, look for another maid. I plan to celebrate." She disconnected and even turned off her phone, leaving David staring blankly at the wall. He realized he hadn't paid attention to the signs of her displeasure. By the evening of the 30th, David hurried to his in-laws' village. An icy wind whipped across his face as he entered the courtyard where Liam and Grandpa Peter were decorating the fluffy Christmas tree with colorful garlands and ornaments. "Let me help," David said, stepping forward. Emma's face lit up with a smile, a flicker of surprise and relief in her eyes. Soon the table was bursting with appetizing food, the aroma of roasted meat and freshly baked bread wafting through the air. The family celebrated joyously, their laughter echoing as they glided across the icy pond, twirling and spinning on their skates. Liam shouted with delight as he rolled down the icy slide, his cheeks flushed from the cold. Together they raced on ice skates, the brisk wind stinging their faces. And then they wandered through the winter woods, admiring the snow-covered branches that sparkled like diamonds in the moonlight. Emma and David even spent a quiet moment under the starry sky as they stood hand in hand and inhaled the faint scent of pine. When it was time to leave, David whispered to Emma, "Thanks for the ride. I'm sorry for being a fool." Emma smiled happily as he kissed her cheek. She had a wonderful husband after all. Liam dozed off in the back seat on the way home, and his sleep was filled with memories of laughter and joy. David, looking in the rearview mirror, felt a warmth in his heart that he missed so much. As they pulled into the driveway, Emma turned to him. "Next year, let's make it a tradition." David nodded, already envisioning the possibilities. Life didn't have to be Groundhog Day if they decided to change the script. And as the new year approached, he felt ready to write a new story of their family, one filled with balance, love, and shared happiness.